All right, Bobcats, I am back. I don't know if I've ever done this before, but I'm super fired up about this awesome poem and this Bob lesson about responsibility. So I wanted to challenge you, and not only students, staff members as well, administrators as well, counselors as well, everybody that's involved in the school as well. Let's take some time this week and spend some time with the man in the glass. Let's spend the time doing some self-reflection, looking in the mirror and asking ourselves, am I being the best student that I can be? Am I being the best teacher, counselor, administrator, whatever it is that I can be? Am I being the best friend that I can be? Am I being the best son or daughter I can be? Brother or sister that I can be? Am I working hard enough? Am I working as hard as I can, or am I slacking some days? Do I need to work harder? Am I cutting corners? Do I need to stop cutting corners? Am I being honest with my parents in terms of my schoolwork, or am I being honest with my friends? Because at the end of the day, you can't fool the man in the glass. And the man in the glass is the only person that's ever going to be there day in, day out with you from the beginning to the end. And I think being accountable to yourself, and that gets back to that respect piece. Having respect for yourself means that you do your best every day and you give yourself the best opportunities you can every day for a bright future, and you don't shortchange yourself. And any decision that you make that is shortchanging your future isn't respecting yourself. All right, this week's Bob lesson is titled The Man in the Glass. But first, let's be our best this week at HMS. Let's be Bob. Let's be safe, let's be responsible, let's be respectful, and let's be a learner. All right, I hope you guys can see this. This is a poem by Mr. Peter Dale Wimbrow Sr., and it is called The Man in the Glass. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this poem to you, and then we're going to break it down paragraph by paragraph, because it is kind of metaphor based, and there are some words, and it's kind of, with most poems, there's some deep thinking involved here. So here we go. The Man in the Glass. When you get what you want in your struggle for self, and the world makes you king for a day, just go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what that man has to say. For it isn't your father or mother or wife whose judgment upon you must pass. The fellow whose verdict counts most in your life is the one staring back from the glass. He's the fellow to please, never mind all the rest, for he's with you clear to the end. And you've passed your most difficult, dangerous test if the man in the glass is your friend. You may fool the whole world down the pathway of years and get pats on the back as you pass, but your final reward will be heartache and tears if you've cheated the man in the glass. All right, I hope you guys like that poem, and we're going to break it down now, piece by piece, page by page, and talk a little bit more in depth about what this poem is trying to say and how it's applicable, how you can apply it to your guys' life. So this poem starts out and says, when you get what you want in your struggle for self, and I want to go back to last week's Bob lesson where I talked about my good friend, well, not my friend, but Eric Erickson, and identity versus role confusion, and answering that question, who am I, and how we all struggle for that in life, and specifically when you're 12 to 19, 20, and honestly into your 20s and into your 30s, when you're struggling to figure out who you are, and when you finally get what you want in your struggle for self, and you figure out who you are, or you accomplish whatever it is that you are trying to accomplish, and the world makes you king for a day, and you finally achieve something, you finally get to where you feel like you're going, you have a victory, and maybe you finally achieve something that you were trying to achieve. Just go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what that man has to say. Now, this could be man, this could be woman. Just for this poem's sake, it says man, but this is really saying go look in the mirror and face yourself and ask that person in the mirror what they have to say. So when you get what you want in your struggle for self and the world makes you king for a day, just go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what that man has to say. All right, now we're on to the second page. And the second page reads, for it isn't your father or mother or wife whose judgment upon you must pass. The fellow whose verdict counts most in your life is the one staring back at the glass. So let's look at this first sentence here. And when they say father or mother or wife, I know obviously none of you are married because you're only 11 to 14 years old here at the Helena Middle School. But those words could very easily be interchanged with your friends, your cousins, your teachers, your brothers, your sisters, so on and so forth. And I think for this Bob Lesson's sake and for how it's most applicable to you guys, I would say it's really talking about mother, father, maybe grandma, grandpa, maybe auntie, uncle, friends, definitely for sure, and probably your teachers because that's who you come in the most contact with. The fellow whose verdict counts most in your life is the one staring back from the glass. So to put this all together, they're basically saying, the author is basically saying, it isn't any of those other people that you come in contact with on a day-to-day basis whose judgment you must pass. The verdict that counts most in your life is the person staring back at the glass. And the person staring back from the glass is obviously you. All right, now we're on to the slide 3. And slide 3 says, he's the fellow to please, never mind all the rest, for he's with you, clear to the end. And you've passed your most difficult, dangerous test if the man in the glass is your friend. Now again, man can be interchanged for man or woman, and he can be exchanged for she's. So in this page he's saying that you are the person that you need to please, not other people. Never mind all those other people. Yes, we need to please our mom and dad, and we need to please our friends, and we need to please our teachers. But those people are going to come and go in life, especially friends, especially your teachers. Okay, hopefully family sticks around a little bit longer than those other people, your friends and your teachers. For he's with you clear to the end. You are always going to have you. The person in the glass is always going to have you. And you've passed your most difficult and dangerous test if the man in the glass is your friend. And I think this is where the poem gets really good, because it talks about being true to yourself and taking responsibility and accountability for yourself. And a lot of times in life we have a decision to make. Are we going to make other people happy, or are we going to make ourselves happy? And I think we need to take care of ourselves first and foremost and do what's best for us always in life. Because we can't be helpful to other people if we're not taking care of ourselves. You've passed your most difficult, dangerous test if the man in the glass is your friend. And this goes back to that personal accountability piece, but it also goes back to figuring out who we are in life. We need to be able to look ourselves in the mirror and be happy with ourselves and the choices we make and the decisions we make. And as we get into this next page, I'm going to explain this a little bit further. All right, and on to the fourth and final slide. You may fool the whole world down the pathway of years and get pats on the back as you pass. But your final reward will be heartache and tears if you've cheated the man in the glass. Let's start with this first sentence. You may fool the whole world down the pathway of years. This is what happens when we're not being real and unapologetically authentic to ourselves. That is one of my favorite words I've came up with, or phrases I've come up with in the last years. Be unapologetically authentic to who you really are in life. And I know this is a very hard thing for 11 to 14-year-olds to do, because we're trying to figure out, we don't even know who we are. Getting back to last week's B.O.B lesson, that answering that question, who am I? And sometimes we do things to fit in, or we do things that are popular instead of being true to who we truly are. The other thing I think about when I read this and I think about middle school kids is being true to yourself in terms of our homework and how honest we are with ourselves and our parents. And I talked to a lot of parents that think some of you are doing pretty well in school, and then Power School tells another story, because some of you are able to pass stories off on how you're really doing in school or how you're really doing as a friend. I encourage kids all the time to go look in the mirror and ask themselves, am I being the best friend I can be? Am I being the best person that I can be? Am I doing my best in this or that situation in life? Because at the end of the day, we can't control other people. We can only control our own actions and our own selves. You may fool the whole world down the pathway of years and get pats on the back as you pass. But your final reward will be heartache and tears if you've cheated the man in the glass, because you can't cheat the man in the glass. You can fool other people, and you can tell lies, and you can be dishonest with other people, and you can trick other people. But getting back to what I talked about a slide or two ago, you can't fool yourself. You can't look in the mirror and lie to yourself, because you know in your heart of hearts what's right and wrong. You know in your heart of hearts how hard you're working in school or how hard you're not working. You know in your own heart of hearts how hard you're working, at being a great friend, being a great peer, being a great teammate, being a great son or daughter, being a great brother or sister. And we can fool other people, but you can't fool the man in the glass. All right, and our quote of the week comes from Miss Anne Frank. Anne Frank was a Jewish Holocaust survivor, and she was an author and wrote some books and some different documents after she got out of the concentration camp. And her quote was, "The final forming of a person's character lies in their own hands." And that's what the man in the glass is about. That's what personal responsibility is about. It's not anybody else's fault what happens to us in life, but our own. We control our own destiny, and we control our own outcomes. That brings us to this week's Jellybean Question of the Week winners, who are Richard Kirk, Asher Croston, Taryn Royer, Mackenzie Graham, and Nathan Millette. The answer is carpet. This week's Jellybean Question of the Week is, you have 5 cows, 2 dogs, and 1 cat. How many legs do you have? If you think you know the answer, submit your answer to Bob Box no later than this Friday. Tune in next week. See if you are a winner. Let's go out and make it a great week, Bobcats.